Hey everyone, it's me, Rami Marks, your tangled yogi out here in Northern California. Welcome to the Ladybug Journey, a Zentangle class. I just taught this class for the San Rafael Public Library on Zoom, and we had such a good time with it, I thought I would bring it here to YouTube as well. So let's talk about the things that we are going to need for class. I'm going to be starting with my graphite pencil. I'll be working with a micron PN pen, my Jelly Roll white gel pen, and then for puddling I'm going to be working with the Faber-Castell Pitt pen. This is the brush pen. It says SB on it. Great for filling in large places where you're going to be doing puddling with ink. Now you know me, I'm a Prismacolor girl, so grab your Prismacolor pencils or your favorite color pencil set and we'll get ourselves on our way. Now you'll notice that I'm working on one of my tiles. This is the Genesis tile, and you can pick it up at the Tangled Yogi shop. It's super smooth paper, but if you don't happen to have the tiles, just get your favorite sketchbook out. Make sure that it's got some nice smooth paper, and we will get started by making a square that's 4.5 by 4.5 for which you can tangle inside. So with that said, let's get started with the Ladybug Journey. So many of you know that I like to do a grounding exercise before we begin tangling together. So let's go ahead and just get ourselves comfortable here, sitting into your chair and letting your feet touch down onto the floor. Let your shoulders melt away from your ears here. Let your spine grow comfortably tall but not hard. And just for a moment, let your hands rest in your lap. And if you're okay with it, allow your eyes to close. And taking a moment and allowing your attention to fall on your breath, feeling your breath as it rolls in, and feeling your breath as it rolls out. As you inhale, feel your body expand with breath, and as you exhale, feel the body as the breath releases. One more time, inhaling and exhaling. And one more right here, inhaling and exhaling. And so I thought I would start with a quote today, and the quote goes like this: "Curiosity is the compass that leads us to our passions. Follow it, and you won't be disappointed. The future belongs to the curious." And I often think that Zentanglers are very curious people, that they want to learn and they want to find out new things. And so I thought that was a good quote for us to begin with today. So taking in one more deep breath right here and letting that simmer with you. Let it go with a sigh. Wiggling in your fingertips and in your toes. Take a shrug with the shoulders and then roll the shoulders back and down. And when you're ready, blinking the eyes open and adding vision back into your practice. And let's do some Zentangle together. So let's begin by starting a string on our piece. The string is the way that we break up a tile so that we can work inside of it to create our Zentangles. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around to each side and I'm going to do a line that goes down that is about an inch. You can see that I'm just letting my pencil go right down the tile to create these little columns in the piece. And so I've got this really nice now string, and I've got this really beautiful square in the center in which I can work in. So go ahead and do yours, and then when we come back we're going to start to add a little bit to it. And now once I have that part of the string, I'm going to come back in again, and just like we would do in a old-fashioned Zentangle, you can see that I'm putting dots in my corner here, and I'm just going to very gently start to create another set of lines so that that inner square is now framed. So you can see that I'm just going around, taking my time, and now that inner square is framed. So go ahead and finish up yours, and then when we come back, we're going to start to ink in our string. So you can see that I've picked up my micron PN pen here, and I'm just going to take my time and let myself have the opportunity to ink in all of the lines that I just created. Now, we go with the pencil at first, just so that in case our string is not exactly how we're looking for it, we have the opportunity to change that part. But remember, there's no mistakes in Zentangle. There's only opportunities, and I like a good opportunity. In fact, in most of my classes, when there are opportunities, we get even better compositions out of the whole piece. So I always love it when people change things up. So I encourage you to get off the rails. And you can see that I'm going to go right down the center in here. I have a little wiggle in my line this morning, too much tea, I think. You can see that I'm coming around. And one more time, coming around. So once I have that, we're going to start to learn a really fun tangle, and this is called ships. So go ahead and finish your inking in, and then we'll learn ships. So the tangle for ships was brought to us by a really fun tangler named Melanie Marty, and she's got a beautiful tangle here, and I just love what she did with this. So ships is, you have a line, and then you have this kind of wave that comes through. It almost looks like a little half leaf, and then she goes over the top with it and creates this little flap, which is so beautiful. And so when you take something like this and you do kind of a plus sign just for starters, you can come in and create this little flap that goes on the right, or rather the left hand side of your piece, and it's such a nice tangle. Thanks, Melanie, for this one. And then if you want to, you can continue to add that flap into your tangle. And as you can see, this is a really neat one. So as I go through it, you can see I'm just kind of playing with the whole thing. And you get this it almost looks like a dahlia or a chrysanthemum, and then you can build out and continue to build out, which is so fun. And see that I'm just kind of playing with that. Some of them will be narrower and some of them will be fuller. It's just really fun to play with. And as I continue, you can see that I'm just kind of goofing off with it and not really having a care in the world, but so fun to play with this tangle. So let's go ahead and do it on the piece here. So you're going to see me start by creating a little bit of a string for myself to play with. And so what this is going to look like is I'm going to come in and I'm just going to divide the space. You can see that I'm working with my pencil here just to create the string. And I'm going to divide the space again. Once I have that, I'm going to go ahead and divide it one more time. And then I'll come over here and I'll divide it one more time. So once I have that, I'm going to pick up my pen and I'm going to start to work with it. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to start to build the string. So I'm going to come probably to the halfway point here and just make a little dot for myself. And all I'm doing is coming in and creating a flap and then dropping down and then doing that little flap on top. Now I'm going to go to the next one and do the same, and you can see that I'm looking to see them line up a little bit. So all I'm doing is creating that little flap, bringing it down, create the little arc on top, and moving to the next one. Coming to the halfway point, create that little flap, and going to the next one. Looking for them to line up so you can see on the diagonal as I'm coming down a little bit. And just doing the next one. Looking for them to line up. Create the flap. And looking for them to line up again. You can see that I'm kind of switching off a little bit. Sometimes I put the string in first and sometimes I do it second. Little flap. Looking for it to line up. And there you can see I have the first part of it. Now for me, what I like to do is I like to come in and pool first. So you're going to see me come in and pool. Such a fun tangle. And just turning and going. And turning and going. So now that I have that, I'm going to start to build out from it. So all I'm going to do, and if you want to pause me here, you can pause me here, but I'm just going to come in from where this V is and come straight out, and I'm going to do it again. So all I'm doing is just creating another layer, another layer. Let's get that top piece. Just coming up from the center here and creating those nice flaps or petals, whatever you want to call them. Now once I've had a chance to go all the way around, I can come in and I can puddle. Oops, staying on camera here. And here we go again. So I'm going to add one more, but if you like yours just the way that it is, you can. You can see that I've got this little area right here. I'm going to let this kind of flow up and out, and then I'm just going to go ahead and let it create another flap. So I'm just going straight up and out and creating another flap. And you can see that when I do this, see how this line is right here? I'm just going to let it guide it right up the side. See how it's touching that petal? It just kind of slides up the side of it. Super fun. Just kind of going right up the side. Right up the side. And I find that when you make those flaps just a little bit fuller, they're more interesting than when they're narrow. So once I've got that set done, I'm going to come in and I'm going to puddle again. And you can decide how long or how short. And they do kind of look like little sails for a ship. You can see that I'm just continuing to puddle around and create. Super fun, super easy. So go ahead and finish up those, and then when we come back, we're going to add a little bit of detailing into the center of the piece. I hope you're enjoying this one. Okay, so I'm going to just zoom in on this, and we're going to come into the center and just add a point of interest. And then once I have that point of interest, I'm going to do some flicks just coming out of the center here. And you can see that I'm just, keeping it really loose and easy. Just some soft flicking. And then once I have that, I'll start to move out to the other petals that are in the piece here. So these secondary petals, I'll come around and do a couple in there. So you can see that I'm just going to get in there and do a couple. Not overthinking it, just keeping it really fluid and easy. And so you can see that we've got this really beautiful, fun flowing flower in the center. Say that 10 times fast. Fun flowing flower. All right, so now what I'm going to do that I have the flicking is I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to come into the corners here, and I'm going to do a nice large tipple right in the corner. So tipple is just a cluster of circles if you're new to Zentangle. So I'm going to do a large tipple in each corner. It is my favorite tangle for those of you who are interested to know. I don't know why, but I use it all the time. And then I'll put a small tipple on either side. And then once I have that, I'm going to come in and I'm going to pull my ink into these little triangles that show up around the piece. Those are called interstices. So once I have those pulled in, I'm going to also do some rounding around the tipples. This just makes it more graphic and interesting. So you're going to see me come in and do just a little softening over here and a little softening right over there. So it's just taking out those hard edges and giving it a little bit of softness. And just take your time with that. Enjoy what you're doing. For me, these are just the most relaxing parts of Zentangle because that's really where you get into the zen of it. It's not a complicated thing. And just coming in and going around just like so. So you finish up yours, I'm going to finish up mine, and then when we come back, we're going to learn a new tangle, well, at least it's new to me, and it's called Buzz. Okay, so this next tangle that we're going to do is called Buzz, and unfortunately I don't know the name of the person that created the tangle, but it is really fun. And so what we're going to do is we're going to use our little markers here from our string, and you can see that I'm kind of going down to where the rectangles are and just bringing that little marker out into the center of each of these little rectangles. Now you can see that I've got my pencil in my hand here. On either side of that little marker that I've made, I'm going to do a little line that's going to give us a little breakup of each square here. So you're going to see that I'm doing kind of a nice narrow line, and then I'm going to do another one on either side. So you can see that I'm just going on either side so that it gives me 3 columns. Okay, I'm going to do that again. So I see where my marker is, and I'm just going to do one line right here and one line right here. And then I'm going to go ahead and do one on each side. Coming around, line on each side of the marker. And right here as well. So you can see that that divides the space in a really, really nice way. Now once I have that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick up my pen, and I'm going to come into the center here, and I'm going to ink in those lines. And then once I have that, I'm going to turn my piece on its side here, and I'm going to go through the center band, and I'm just going to do some free flowing lines that go through the center. So I'm just taking my time. And then once I have that, I'll come back up, and I'm going to do some dots on either side of that center line. Once I have that, I'm going to come to the side here, and I always do this vertically just because it's easier than doing lines horizontally for me. I'm going to come into the center, and I'm going to create a flux-like shape that's going to come up, touch the edge, and drop down. And then I'll do one over here and one over here. I'll turn the piece, and I'll do the same thing to the opposite side. And I think the reason why she called it Buzz was because it looks like the wings of some kind of animal or insect. And that's how we get that really nice tangle. So I'm going to go all the way around and do mine. I'll do another one with you here before we go. So turning your piece on its side. Doing those nice lines, take your time with it. And then I'm going to turn the piece, and I'm going to do dots. Once I have that, I'm going to come in and do the flux, coming off to the side, and coming off to the side. Turning it over, and one more over here, and one more over there. So take your time with that, and then when we come back, we'll have finished up those, and we'll start to add our ladybugs into the corners. So now before we go ahead and add any more to this piece here, we're going to ink in the area around Buzz. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to be using my Faber-Castell Pitt pen, but you can use your favorite thick Zentangle pen. If you have the IdentiPen, that would work really well. If you've got a micron brush pen, that will work very well. So you can see that I'm just coming in, and I'm going to add a little bit of that black into the piece. And you'll notice that I'm really taking my time with those brush pens. You know, if you feel more comfortable working with the thick nibbed pens, that's fine. And by the way, if you don't have those pens that I was talking about before, you could use a Sharpie. Those are fine too. That's a thicker nibbed pen. It's just that it's not archival and they're kind of stinky, but it'll work in a pinch. Now, if you don't want to use black, you could always pick up one of your Prismacolor pencils, and you could do this with a Prismacolor. So there's really more than one way to go about doing this. You could use any color you like to fill in the space around your buzz. Okay, so you can see that I'm taking my time and working around these pieces, and it's going to give it a really fun graphic feel. The reason why I chose to do black is because it was a nice nod back to the centerpiece that has so much black in it. So that's what Buzz is going to look like. So go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine, and then we'll bring in the ladybugs. So you can see that this has got a really nice graphic feel once we have finished up with it. Isn't that lovely? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick back up my pencil that I was using earlier, and I'm going to turn this on the diamond here and focus right up here in this corner. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to make a circle that fills in the space. So you can see that I'm just making a soft circle in there. And then once I've made my soft circle, I'm going to make two little pods on either side. Once I've had those two little pods, I'm going to do an aura, and I'll do another aura. I'm going to put the head of the ladybug on, and then I'm going to give some little legs for our little ladybug. So this ladybug was an inspiration because I was driving with my husband a couple of weeks ago from our home, and we had a hitchhiker ladybug that wouldn't get out of our car. We kept opening up the window, and he wouldn't leave. So we decided to let him stay with us until we got to our next destination, and it worked out quite well. So that's why there's some ladybugs in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in now, and I'm going to ink in my ladybug. And you can see that I'm really just taking my time with this. Coming over in here, and then just adding in my layers. Once I have that, I'll come up to the top, and I'll create some eyes, and I'm going to puddle in the ink. Just like so. Now, for me, I always make my ladybug dots much smaller than the head so that there's no confusion about what's going on and that it is, in fact, a ladybug. Super fun, super easy. So I'm going to do that in all of my corners, and you go ahead and do yours, and then when we come back, it's time for color. So I'm feeling like it's still got a little case of the blahs here. So let's go ahead and add a little something into Buzz. I'm going to come into Buzz over here, and I'm going to do an aura. Let's go ahead and zoom in on this. I'm going to do an aura on the inside. And then I'm going to do another aura, and you're going to see me fill it in. So I'll go again, put putting in an aura, and then a second aura, and filling it in. And for me, that just gives it a little bit of interest, keeps it from having the blahs. Turning this over. One more time. And filling it in. And so you can see the difference here when I zoom out. It's much more interesting, isn't it, than just having those blank pieces. So go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine, and then when we come back, we'll do some color. Okay, so in my hand I have color PC118. This is the cadmium orange, and I want you to go ever so lightly with the cadmium orange right in the center. You can see that I'm doing just soft circles with the cadmium orange. Really soft dusting. I want your pencil to just barely touch the page. So just lightly going around. And it's going to start to bring your attention into the center of the flower here. Now, for those of you who are new to taking my classes, I'll just share with you quickly. Each color pencil is 3 different colors. It's light, it's medium, and it's dark. It's all about the amount of pressure you put on the pencil here. So once you have that knowledge, you can take your pencil and use it to your advantage. So if you don't even have a lot of color pencils, you can just use that one color pencil to do a lot. So you're going to see me come back in, and I'm going to press a little bit harder to bring a little bit of energy into the center. And you can see that I'm not being overly perfectionistic about it. I'm just letting it have a little bit of an organic feel. As I move around. And you can see that it's working really nicely with those two together, right? So it has a nice pressure on it. Now I'm going to pick up another color, and this is one of my favorite colors. This is PC110. This is the yellowed orange, and we're going to do some blending with these two. So I'm going to take that yellowed orange, and I'm just going to start to run it over where the orange is meeting the light orange, and I'm just going to start to let it work itself out. And what that does is it creates a really nice blend of the two colors together. So you can see it's a really nice softening of that color line, and that yellowed orange goes so nicely over the orange. And it takes away that hard line of demarcation as I'm working through. So you can see that it really doesn't have that hard line anymore. Now, if you're working with paper that has a lot of texture to it, this can be really helpful for blending in your colors, because anything that's really toothy like that is going to show up as soon as you put color pencils down. I like to work with really smooth paper. For me, it just gives me the best result with my color pencils. I really enjoy it. So you may decide to pick up some really nice paper that's super smooth. Some of my favorite is the Bristol paper, because it's so smooth and easy to get your hands on. You can also get really nice cardstock as well. But I'm a really big fan of the hot press paper. I like it very much. So once I have that, if you're still seeing a little texture inside of your flower here, I'm just going to zoom in on this. I've picked up my PC938. This is the Prisma white color pencil. And I'm just going to do a little bit of blending with that pencil just to get a really nice softening of the color here. So you can see that it's super blended. And the reason why I like to work with the Prisma White is because you can continue to go over it. If you're using a regular blender, you may be locking yourself out of going back in and playing for a while. Okay, so for me, the white gives me the freedom to go back and forth with my colors. Now I'm going to begin to let go of the orange just for a moment and pick up a little bit of my magenta, which is the PC 195. I love this color. Oops, I actually have the pomegranate in my hand, which is very similar to the magenta. You can see as I hold these two together, very, very similar. So if you don't have the magenta, you could use the pomegranate, but magenta is PC 930. And I'm going to go for that one. So I'm going to pick it up and I'm just going to start to do the same thing that I did with the last piece. So you're going to see me come in very, very lightly with the magenta, and I'm just going for that second petal that we were working with before. So you can see I'm leaving the third petal out. I'm just working with the second petal. So really nice soft color here. Going very, very lightly. Super, super light. It's an easy dusting of color, so really, really keeping it soft and loose. And once I've had a chance to go all the way around with that, I'm going to come back in and give it a little pressure, just like I did with the orange. Now you'll notice that the magenta has a lot more pigmentation to it, and so it's really fun to work with. You can see that I'm just turning as I go. Giving a little bit of pressure. Now once I have that, and remember you can pause me at any time, I'm going to come back in with that white because the white is going to be very complementary to that magenta, and you're going to see me come right where the line of demarcation is, and I'm just going to go right over the top of it and dip in, and then I'll clean it up a little bit and come to the edge. And you can see that that keeps the inside nice and rich and the outside nice and light. Now you could go about it this way as well, where you just dust the edge first and then you start to dip into the center. And you can see that that also gives a nice smoothness to it. So you can see that I'm just going to go around and have some fun with this. Just turning. And we're getting that really nice blend of color here. Now here's what I love about this. I can come back in with a little bit of that magenta and just do a little dusting right in the center. So I'm just coming in and dusting in and giving that a little bit of pressure. So here's why I love to work with the white, is I can just come right in over the top of it and not have to worry about creating a little bit of depth. And isn't that beautiful? So go ahead and finish up yours, and then when we come back, we're going to start to bring that orange back in. So I'm going to start to pick back up that cadmium orange again, and I'm going to just dust the edges of this. So I'm just going to those outer petals and having some fun with it. You can see that I'm just taking my time, getting in and getting out. And already this is getting a really cool look to it. Let yourself breathe, relax, and enjoy what you're doing. If you're tensing up, see if you can soften. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back in again, dust a little harder. And then I'll pick back up that yellow again, and I'll start to blur out my edges. I love to layer color. I think that it's really, really beautiful, and it gives our Zentangles a little bit more depth. Shading is really what makes these things come alive for me, and I hope they bring a little joy to you as well. And just letting that come around. And then I'll pick up a little bit of that white pencil and blur out my edges just a little bit. So you're going to see me come in and blur it out. And just taking my time. You guys might hear my puppy outside. He's playing with some friends and getting a little rowdy out there. You can see that I just picked up a little bit of orange, and I'm just dusting it in and giving it a little bit of heaviness right where the petals are meeting, just to make it more interesting. So you can see that I do like to go back and forth with this a bit. Isn't that lovely? So I hope that you are enjoying that. Take your time, have fun with it, and then when we come back, we're going to start to let those colors make their way around the piece. So many of you know that I like to use a technique called carrying color. And carrying color means that it's just kind of bouncing your eye around a piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to the outside pieces where Buzz is, and we're going to start to add some color into Buzz. And so what this will look like is I'm going to start with that magenta color, and right on the outside pieces in here I'm going to start to bring in some color to where I have my auras. So you'll see that I'm just going to dip in and add that color in. And it's okay if you get it a little bit outside. And then on the edges, I'm going to give this a little bit of a pop. I'll do the same thing on the other side, bringing it in and giving it a little pop right on the edge and right on the edge. Now in the centerpiece, I'm going to bring in that orange, and you're going to see that have a little bit of pop too. So a little dusting here and a little dusting over here, and then making it a little heavier right on the edge and right on the edge. Let's go ahead and zoom in on that. I'm going to take some of that yellow and just soften up the orange a little bit to get a really nice blur. And then I'll pick up some of that white and pick up the white and do a soft blur. And that's the way that I'm going to handle buzz. So go ahead and do buzz all the way around on the 3 other sides, and then when we come back, we're going to work with the ladybugs. So we're going to continue to work with these colors here. We're going to start to work with our ladybug. And I'm going to pick up my magenta and start with the magenta first this time. So I'm going to go very, very softly into where the ladybug is, and I'm just going to lay down a little bit of that magenta, going about 2/3 of the way through the piece here. You'll see that I'll come over to the other side and start to bring that in. I'm going really, really light, starting with this color. Remember, the idea is that we can get many different colors out of one pencil. So I'm going to come back up to the top, and I'm going to press a little bit harder and start to come down and get a little bit of depth out of this. So you can see that this is getting really kind of a nice feel to it. And then I'm going to let go of the magenta, and I'm going to pick up a little bit of orange and dust in just the edges of my ladybug here, because I want to get kind of an interesting feel to the ladybug. Now once I've got that orange in there, I'm going to pick up that yellow that we were working with earlier, and I'm going to start to blend the whole thing through. So you're going to see me come down from the top and start to get that really nice softness and also a little bit of that vibrancy. So we're taking that magenta that had started out really, really cool, and now that we're taking that yellow over the top of it, we're getting a really nice blend of the magentas here, and it really starts to look like a ladybug. And so you can see that I'm just blurring the edges, getting that softness that's going through. And the reason why I'm using the yellow and not the orange is because it's got a lot of wax in it. And so what it's doing is it's pushing around that color quite a bit. Now, if you feel like you don't have enough of that heavier red in there, you can always come back in with a little bit of that magenta and just watch how it kind of plays over that yellow and orange. It really has a beautiful feel. So I'm just taking my time with it and getting right into these kind of corners, and you can decide how much or how little of that red you want in there. And if you're getting any scratch in the background, you can also use a little bit more of that yellow and press a little bit harder to get that background to soften up a little bit. So I'm going to finish up mine. You finish up yours. I'm going to go into all 4 corners and do my ladybugs. I'll see you in a minute. So you can see that really bringing in those ladybugs into the corner brings a really nice feeling to the piece. It just gives it a little bit of whimsy, which I just love. So we're going to let go of the magenta and the orange and the yellow for a little while, and I'm going to bring in a color that I love to work with. This is lime peel green, and this is PC1005, one of my favorite colors, and it plays really well with these specific colors that we have here today. So I'm going to go in and I'm just going to do a demonstration on half of what we're going to do on the centerpiece. And what this is going to look like is I'm going to come in and I'm going to start to fill in the background area with that green. Now you'll notice that my pencil is pretty well sharpened up, and I'm going to be working on the side of the pencil, which means my hand is going to be towards the back of the pencil. If your hand is towards the front of the pencil when you're doing this, you're really not going to be able to efficiently fill in the space. So really just get to the back of the pencil if you can. You're going to see that I'm going to lay down the pencil and I'm going to be working on the side of the pencil to bring in this really pretty lime peel green, which contrasts really nicely off of what we have in the center. You're going to see me just start to make little circles with that pencil, and I'm going fairly lightly with it, and I'm just dusting in that color. So I'm not worried about blending it in. I'm really just building a foundation of color. Coming in and bobbing and weaving through the piece here. And we're just going to do half for the video, and then you can do the other half on your own. So you can see that I'm just kind of dusting in and getting that in there. Now I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on this a little bit, and I'm going to start to build some shadow by coming up on the pencil a little bit and starting to work on the tip of the pencil. And you can see that I'm going to build a shadow that's going to come around the tipple here. That's that tangle with the circles. And I'm just going to start to turn my page and build that frame in a little bit. So you can see that I'm building that frame in and really getting a nice feel. And starting to bring it around. Now I like this because it really gives a glow to the center of the piece here. Now once I've got that shadow in there, I'm going to do something that I don't do all the time, but I really wanted to try it on this piece. I'm going to pick up some graphite and I'm just going to dust it right along the black line to give a little bit more intensity to that shadow. I love working with graphite when it's blurred in with some of the wax, because it doesn't really have a tendency to pick up and move. If it's just by itself and you're using a tortillon, graphite has a tendency to move, but when you mix it with the Prismacolor pencils, it seems to get stabilized. So once I have that in there, I'm going to pick up my white pencil now, because you can see that there's a real toothiness to the color. So I'm going to start by making sure that the pencil is nice and clean just by rubbing the point of the pencil with my finger. And I'm going to start to do little circles, and you're going to see that the toothiness of this is going to go away. And you can see that I can grab some of that gray and pull it down with the white, so that I really start to get a beautiful shadow that kind of really gives it some depth. So you can see that I'm just starting to work over the lines, little circles with that pencil, and it gives it a soft blur of color. You can see that's really quite nice in there, and then I can continue to work wherever I see that toothiness in the color. I really enjoy kind of playing it up and seeing where it goes. It's always kind of an experiment working with color, and it brings me a lot of joy. So that when I zoom out, look at how moody that is. Isn't that beautiful? It really gives this a painterly feel, which is something that I'm always striving for with my Prismacolor pencils. So go ahead and do yours. I'm going to go ahead and do the opposite side, and then when we come back, we're going to start to let that color seep outward. Now, even if we left it just like this would be really a fun class, and all on its own it would be really great. But you know me, I can never leave well enough alone. So we're going to start to work with our ladybugs here, and I'm going to let that green start to carry out into where the ladybugs are. And you can see that I'm just letting it kind of dance into those little squares that we have here. Just keeping it really light and easy there. I'm going to start to create a little bit of a shadow around the bottom of the ladybug and around the sides of the ladybug, just to give it a little bit of a pop off the page kind of feel. Now I'll pick up a little bit of that graphite once again, and I'm going to dust just the outside edge of the ladybug and right underneath. And then I'll pick up some of that white and start to blur it out. So you can see that I'm just trying to get a really soft shadow around that ladybug. I'm not looking for anything heavy, just a soft shadow. And if you're worried about your black lines, you can always go over your black lines later with a little bit of your pen. So you can see that that gives us a really nice intensity in those corners. So go ahead and do those corners, have some fun with it, and then when we come back, we're going to start to work with a little bit of the gray inside of where the bottom wing is. Okay, so I'm going to pick up a little bit of my graphite pencil, and I also have a tortillon that I'm going to be working with just to get some blending out of this. So what I'm going to do is just come into where my ladybug is, and I'm just going to dust a little bit of graphite into the wing of the ladybug and just do a little bit of blending with that tortillon. This is just a blending stump. So you can go through all of your ladybugs and just do a little dusting of that black and then a little bit of a smear with it or a blending. Now if you don't have a tortillon and you're just doing the video with me on YouTube, you can always just grab a Q-tip, and a Q-tip will do the same thing. They're great to use because they're quick and easy, and you can use them with charcoal pencils too. Now, the other place that I'm going to put a little bit of that gray is I'm going to dust it into where Buzz is. And you can see that I'm just doing a little bit on the top and a little bit on the bottom. And then I'm going to use my tortillon and just blur out those edges. And what this is going to do is it's just going to give it almost a metallic feel. So you can see that I'm just rolling around and just adding a little bit of graphite into Buzz and blurring it out. So go ahead and do your ladybugs and do Buzz, and then when we come back we're going to add some shading into Tipple. Okay, so what I wanted to do was add just a little bit of a pop to the piece that wasn't anywhere else in the piece. So in my hand I have aquamarine, which is PC 905, and I'm also going to be using that lime peel green again, and I'll be using my white. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in on this corner right here, and we're going to just lightly dust a little bit of that aquamarine in here. And when I say lightly dust, I mean it in terms of I'm tickling the page with my pencil. Now I'm going to go into the corner here and I'm going to push a little bit harder, starting to get that really interesting shadow. And then just for a little bit of kicks, we're going to add just a skosh of that lime peel green right inside of where the white is. I'm going to pick up that white pencil and I'm just going to very gently start with the white, the lightest part first, and blur that out. And then you can see that I'm starting to pull back into that darker area. That way we get all of our lights, mediums, and darks. And look at how pretty that is when we do that. So I'm just going to go in again right over the green and the light blue, and then I'll go over that heavier blue. And that's going to give us a really nice kind of orb. Okay, so go try that in the other corners, and I'll see you in a minute. Isn't that so fun? I love this. It's really coming along quite nicely. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come into the piece with a little bit of a white pen here, and right in where my tipple are, I'm going to add just a little bit of a accent here, just a nice little accent of white and a dot. And that's just going to give those orbs a little bit of three-dimensionality or a sheen. You can see that I'm taking my time with it. I'm working with the Sakura Jelly Roll pen today, but you could work with your Mizu Love if you like that one. It's one of my favorites. I just happen to have this one handy right now, so I grabbed it. And you can see that I'm just kind of rolling through and adding a little bit of dots into the smaller ones just to give them some dimension, but you can see that that really does give it a lot. I'm also going to come up to the ladybugs, and I'm just going to add a little sheen into my ladybug here just by adding a little bit of a line and a couple of dots, and it will just make the ladybugs look like they're shining in the sunshine. And just kind of working my way around. Just like so. I'm not going to do a ton of white on this piece here, but what I am going to do is I am going to pick up my micron pen, and you can see that some of my ladybug legs got a little blurry when I was doing my blending, and so I can come back in and redefine them. Now, if you ever find that your micron pens get a little gunky from working over the Prisma, there's two suggestions that I have for you. One is that you can keep a piece of paper nearby to just run your pen along and it will ungunk itself. Or two, there's a really nice pen that is made by Sakura as well, and it's called the IdentiPen, and it's a wonderful pen to go over the Prismacolor pencils. It works quite well. So either one of those works, but I find that if I go light enough with my micron pen, you can see that my legs of my ladybugs are coming on quite nicely. And look at how fun that is. Super, super fun. So go ahead, look for those spaces where you may have lost a little definition in your black lines. And then when we come back, we're going to do one final piece to the puzzle. Okay, so we have come to the end of our time together, and I wanted to put my chop into the piece. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide my chop just down here in this little corner. Your chop is your way of signing your piece and signing off on it. And I think it's really important in the Zentangle process to place your chop. It's just an important way to say that you have completed with the piece. And also, if you were in a room with other tanglers and you were doing a mosaic, it would help you to find your own piece. So there you have it. We have completed our ladybug journey, and I hope that you've enjoyed the class. If you did, give the video a thumbs up, or even better, give it a little nice review, or subscribe. When you hit the subscribe button, you get a little notification every time I offer a class up on YouTube, and there are many coming because there's lots of library classes happening right now. So that's it for me. I'm Rami Marks, your Tangled Yogi. Thanks for joining me today, and I look forward to tangling with you soon. Bye for now.